Dashing Daniel is a serial killer at peak human potential and is constantly on an adrenaline high at all times. He hunts monsters that go bump in the night. The house began to wake from the far-off wailing sounds coming from beyond its legal property lines. It had stood for over a century and was a temporary medical refuge during the Civil War. Many had died within its walls, and it no longer remembered what soul possessed it, nor did it remember what side it fought for, east or west. These details did not matter to the house. What did matter was that something was on its property, poking around unwanted. A quick search with its tree roots would reveal what was amiss. Before it could finish the thought, an intruder was at the door, standing on its unwelcome mat. The house's wrath against intruders was legendary, but the sun was barely shining, and the only thing it wanted to do was drift back into its dreams. So, with a click at the door, it closed its windows and nestled back to peace. The door fell over as a man carrying an axe, a crazed smile on his face, and wearing a gray torn-collared shirt with raggy jeans walked in. Cuts and bruises littered the man's body, but he walked as if he suffered no injuries. Who was this malcontent? Nevertheless, trespassers would not be tolerated. Still hoping to solve the problem with minimum effort, the house would be content with scaring the human. This was a time to articulate. "Oh, gee," the house said, its words echoing throughout the walls. Wait, that wasn't quite right. It had been a long time since it spoke. "Get out." But the man plopped himself on the couch, not even daring to take off his shoes. "Wow, a genuine haunted house," he said. "I'm Daniel, by the way." The house creaked with frustration. "Get out." "Lovely," Daniel said. "Get out." He did not budge. Never mind that speaking was more of a party trick, if anything. Not that anyone had a party in the house. It would try something else. "I'm on the run from the cops as I look for my dear lost mother," Daniel said with a relaxed tone. "And of course, hacking away anyone who gets in my way." Probing his mind, the house responded by bleeding a detailed replica of Daniel's mother in Civil War-era blood onto the wall. But instead of a fearful yelp, he let out a caveman-like, "Oh," and pointed. "Yes, that's her," he said. The wailing sounds were now close, much closer. It was getting harder and harder to go back to sleep. "The cops," Daniel said, peeking out the window. The house responded by growing a new front door and sealing Daniel inside. It didn't want more visitors. "Perfect plan, house," Daniel said, taking a look outside using its surprising modern clown garden gnomes. The house saw 4 metal chariots that said "Police." It didn't know what that was, but it wasn't in the mood to buy anything. "He had to come here. It's the only place to hide," said one of the men. "We should storm inside." "I'm not sure, boss. Don't people who usually go after Dashing Daniel often die? Maybe we should just write off this one," the other said. "We're just local cops." Tired of listening to their squabble, the house grew a giant vine hurling the chariot in the air. The men screamed and quickly scrambled to hide behind their other chariots. They wouldn't leave. Humans were paradoxical things. Scare them too much and they were paralyzed. It was growing tired of this. As Daniel peeked out the window, giving it a thumbs up, the house decided it was time for breakfast. The house then began rumbling as it opened up its floors like a sinkhole. Daniel crashed down inside. There were many skeletons within its attic. He seemed to take notice. "I was right," Daniel said. "This is the right house." Right house? Of course it was. No other houses were alive. Sealing him underground, Daniel seemed to care little and examined the skeletons more closely. "These are the nurses and the patients, both north and south. This is the legendary haunted house from Civil War legends." Those words drudged up memories, and if the house had hands, it would have facepalmed. Now it remembered. It wasn't part of the Civil War. The soldiers and the nurses had invaded its doors, and so the house had opened up its floors, trapping them all underground. Each one died a slow and cold death, absorbing and digesting their nutrients slowly. North and south, these details didn't matter to a house. It remembered its murderous teenage years fondly. Even if it was over 100 years ago, I can't forgive a monster, Daniel said. The house echoed with a rumble, echoing that would be described as laughter. What would he do? He was just a man. It was the house. Now Daniel would die. The house screeched with pain, as it had felt something awful stinging on its side. I was looking for you, Daniel said. Everything else was a distraction as I planted bombs. You're another I can cross off the list. How dare he? Those wounded soldiers deserved it for bleeding on the carpet and wailing throughout the night. If it should die, at least Daniel would go with it. But Daniel was not much to the house's confusion. The pain burned. Slowly it was accepting its death. Fire burning. But it still hurt. As the walls began falling down along, and its antique furniture was consumed in flames, it hoped that eternal sleep would not be easily disturbed. The explosions continued, and eventually it lost all feeling as everything became still and black, like falling into a deep, unwilling sleep. The police officers fled the scene, seeking cover from the explosions, while Daniel quickly snuck off into the nearby woods and continued his worldwide monster hunt. Despite the town's loss of a valuable historic relic, residents would report feeling safer and easier to sleep at night after its destruction, and nobody could admit why. Dashing Daniel is a flash fiction series, brought to you through audio by Milo Reed. Later adventures of Daniel can be found on the Advent of Heroes WordPress blog. The blog and Daniel's stories are linked in the description. If you'd like to see more audio adventures of Daniel, please provide feedback in the comments section.